the think tank itself. So, okay. It's really nice to have all of you here. That's great. I think we still have 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Okay, yes. Feel free to make yourself comfortable, or if you have something the think tank itself, water or something to drink, feel free. Okay. You're okay. It's really nice to have all of you here. Yes. Feel free to make yourself comfortable. Okay. 3 minutes.
对，还有3分钟吧，再3分钟。就告诉他还有3分钟。
Okay, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. One minute. Okay. You want to get started? Go ahead. Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah, let's go.
Chang is our executive director of this Consilium Institute and also a senior research fellow. Yeah, he's now give us an opening remark and telling you about the think tank as well. Chang, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar from the Consilium Institute. So our Consilium Institute is based in New York. We are an independent non-profit think tank dedicated to advancing the humanities' well-being in today's very complex and rapidly evolving, changing world. So at the core of our mission is to the unwavering belief that a rational thinking and an effective and principled policy making are essential to building a freer, a safer, a more compassionate global society. So our institute bring together an exceptional team of multidisciplinary experts spanning from geopolitics, national securities, history, economics, physical science, biotechnologies, artificial intelligence. So basically, a cornerstone of our research and analysis is the study of geopolitics, with a particular current focus on China and the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. So at Consilium, our research on China and CCP are guided by a crucial principle. The Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, is not synonymous with China, the nation, and the Chinese people, nor does it represent the richness of China's history and traditional culture. So we take a clear-eyed approach to analyze China and CCP, examining issues such as leadership transition, economic shifts, demographic change, governance crisis, etc. So we believe an effective foreign policy must be grounded in sober analysis and a commitment to the truth, rather than some wishful thinking or naive engagement. Right? So in our view, a brave eagle should not be blamed for being hawkish when confronting a poisonous snake or fighting for its own survival and global stability. So the so-called panda hacker concept is based on the misunderstanding that CCP represents China, and it's a severe underappreciation of the CCP's threat in its unrestricted warfare, both in its strategies and operations. So this panda hacker concept should not be existed in the foreign policy domain. So we are no longer dealing with the threat of the communism in the last century, and we are in the 21st century dealing with the unprecedented threat from CCP. So in our Consilium Institute, our role is to cast light on these intricate internal or external strategies of the CCP. And we also want to engage the international community in constructive dialogues on how to best respond to these emerging challenges and threats. So today we welcome you to our inaugural webinar. So we will address a vital and timely question. What is the current state of the internal power dynamics within the CCP, and what are the broader implications for China and for the world? So we are looking for an enlightening and impactful discussion in today's webinar, and we're glad to have Professor Frank Xie as our moderator. So I turn my microphone to Frank. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Zhang. Thank you, Zhang. Yeah. Okay, again, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and welcome to the seminar. The title is CCP, Chinese Communist Party in Crisis. Is China entering a post-Xi or post-CCP era? As Chang said, we gather here today on this beautiful Saturday morning to explore a pivotal question at the intersection of global politics and leadership dynamics. The CCP, Chinese Communist Party, stands as one of the most influential, disturbing, and destructive forces shaping the 21st century. Right? Yet its leadership faces mounting challenges, both internal and external, that we can explore today, that raise critical questions about its future. Right? So today we will dissect these themes with rigor and curiosity, examining whether the CCP is indeed at a crossroads, and if parallels to moments of historical leadership shifts by the current United States government will hold true. Now, throughout discussions, we aim to uncover insights that illuminate the complexities of power, governance, and global influence in the era of uncertainty. Thank you for joining us. Let's dive into this critical conversation. Just a brief introduction about myself. My name, of course, is Frank Tian Xie, Xie Tian in Chinese. I'm the Vice President of Research at Consilium and also a Senior Research Fellow. And I'm actually a non-resident Senior Fellow. I have my other job as the endowed chair professor in business and professor of marketing at the University of South Carolina, Aiken. So welcome again, everyone. And the format of today's seminar or webinar is like this. Okay. First round, we're going to invite every one of the speakers to speak for about 7 to 8 minutes. 7 to 8 minutes. So total, we have the first hour. And then we into our second round. Each one will have about 3 to 4 minutes each, right? In the second round, you can elaborate further of what you talked about in the first round, or you can offer critique of others' comments, raise questions for others, or whatever, okay? And the third round, that's the last half an hour of the 2-hour session. The floor will be open, and we have a free discussion, and we may also take some questions from the audience. I can see we have participants also for now, okay? And then we'll conclude in about 2 hours, okay? Okay, let's welcome first speaker. Our first speaker is Mr. Gordon. Is China is failing. What we must now do. Okay, what we must do now. Okay, Gordon Chang, as many of you know, his Chinese name is Zhang. He's an American lawyer and he's a very famous political analyst, appearing on major news medias everywhere. And he's also a conservative columnist, known for his insights on China. Gordon graduated from Cornell Law School in 1976, and he then lived in mainland China and Hong Kong for close to 2 decades. And he's most famous for his book, in 2001 book, The Coming Collapse of China, in which he predicted the upcoming collapse of the Chinese Communist regime. And I think with the test of time today, the world gradually and finally start to see its true contribution to our understanding of contemporary China. And I must say that Gordon was truly visionary and way ahead of our time when he spoke about this 24 years ago, when others were often fooled or befuddled by the lies of CCP. So now let's welcome Mr. Gordon Chang. Gordon.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Sean. China's regime
we don't have your picture. Go ahead.
Excuse me?
Go ahead, yeah.
China's regime is showing signs of failure. We don't know exactly what's going on because Xi Jinping has been closing the country off from the rest of the world. But we do know that something is up. And so therefore, we should think about what we will do if or when the regime fails. And so today, in addition to talking about what we should do, I'll also talk about what we should not do. The most important thing, and this is where we begin, the most important thing is that we need to prevent Chinese leaders from thinking that they can rescue themselves by starting a war someplace. Now, China's regime is already at this moment waging proxy conflicts on 3 continents. And so the world does not need another war, this time in East or South Asia. Now, when the worst happens, we will have to secure China's nuclear weapons and its other weapons of mass destruction. Also, it very well may be that the world needs to come to the relief of the Chinese people with food operations or other humanitarian efforts. Now, none of this will be easy. It won't be easy because China is big, but also because remnant regime elements may resist outside interference because we know that the CCP over the course of decades has been promoting xenophobia. But we can suspect there will be chaos. And very well, the world may not be able to do anything, much less the United States on its own, So what I'm going to do is talk about what we should do to protect our own society. And I won't keep you in suspense. Let me summarize. When the regime in China fails, in other words, when the center is gone, we are going to have to seize and freeze Chinese assets fast. So let's take the Chinese banking system. Now, China's banks are the world's largest by any metric, but we know that they are plugged into our financial system. When China's regime fails, we got to be worried that some party will loot these Chinese banks to support his or her ambitions. And that, of course, will affect our depositors of these Chinese banks in the United States. Now, these Chinese banks are large, but they're also insolvent. They're insolvent on a balance sheet basis. In other words, their assets are less than their liabilities if those assets were properly valued. In a crisis, China's banks could close up. Business activity will certainly decline. And that means the Chinese loan books, in other words, their assets, will decline. And the central government may not support these banks by keeping them liquid. So that means the U.S. comptroller of the currency and the FDIC should be seizing and freezing the assets of China's banks in the United States. Other issue, China's foreign exchange reserves, at least those reserves denominated in dollars. Now, the U.S. Treasury reports that China holds $759 billion worth of treasuries. But that number is, I think, undercounting. And the reason is that we know that China holds U.S. treasuries in London through nominees, and it probably holds U.S. treasuries through nominees in other locations. We've got to be concerned that in a crisis in China, some party is going to dispose of these treasuries in a disorderly fashion. And if that happens, then the concern, of course, is that they could try and tank the dollar, or that very well may be the result of what they're doing. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, probably should halt trading in all Chinese companies. And we should talk about something that rarely gets mentioned: food security. A Chinese party owns Smithfield Foods, the United States, the biggest producer of pork. During the COVID pandemic, we know that Smithfield sold pork to China under circumstances where it would have been commercially more reasonable to sell pork in the U.S. So we've got a problem. I think that in a crisis in China, we need to seize the shares of Smithfield and operate it on our own. This is something that we should have done before, but it is something we can do in a crisis. And while we're talking about a crisis and what we can do, I think the President of the United States should invoke his powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, as well as maybe the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. The president should invoke these powers to get American businesses off of Chinese soil. And the other thing that we need to do is to get Americans out of China. Evacuations are hard. They're going to be especially hard in a chaotic situation on Chinese soil, and especially for Americans who are in the central and western portions of China. So what we should be doing is, at the first sign of trouble, we should be ordering Americans out of China. Now, these are going to be difficult tasks, but they're things that we should do. We shouldn't wait. We should act at the first sign of trouble. One final point. When there is a crisis in China, policymakers and analysts will be tempted to say that American policy should try to help one group over another in China. You know, we have done this before. We've tried it, and we have produced spectacularly atrocious results. Our results have been spectacularly atrocious because we often don't understand what's going in China, and we can be easily manipulated. And we have been easily manipulated. So during a crisis in China, the most important thing is that our policymakers act in the best interest of Americans and never compromise our interests, because we think that we should help one group in China over another. On a related point, there will inevitably be American policymakers who think that we should try and rescue the Communist Party under the theory of at least it's the devil we know. Now, 3 American presidents have come to the rescue of the CCP. Richard Nixon in 1972, George H.W. Bush in 1989, and Bill Clinton in 1999. Now, the first of those instances, Nixon, may be justifiable. That's up for history to decide. But the other 2 cases, clearly indefensible help of the Chinese regime, a regime that is now trying to take down our society. As Americans, we must remember that the CCP is inherently hostile to democracies. That organization idealizes domination, struggle, and violence, so it will never be able to coexist with a free society. That's something that we must never, never forget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Gordon. That's excellent. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the issue about the Chinese banks insolvency, and we have seen that. We have seen problems with that. And back, if you remember, in 1989, June 4th, Tiananmen Square massacre. Yeah, at the peak of that massacre, during the massacre, the Chinese elite were actually transferring money, cash, out of the country. That was really, they felt that they were in crisis, they could lose power, and they transferred money, cash, gold, to Switzerland and others. So it actually happened. Now, I think I'm glad that you brought up this issue that the banks are maybe already insolvent, and if they see the boat is sinking, they probably going to take money with them and go. So that's good. We can hopefully there's something we can do. The U.S. the government can do, right? And also, thank you for bringing up the Smithfield issue. Right? Okay, our next speaker is Dr. Tianliang, Zhang Tianliang. His topic is the Xi losing power. Threat, 3 things to watch. Right? Dr. Tianliang Zhang is a senior fellow at Consilium Institute, and also he's a professor of classic study at the Tian College. Right? And he has several. He's a very hot YouTuber. He's the host of YouTube channels, several channels, a couple of channels, I believe. His channel had over 600,000 subscribers, 600,000, and 250 million views. That's a mind-boggling number, and it's very impressive. Very impressive. And his YouTuber channels cover a variety of topics from politics, economy, international relations, public policy, history, religion, and culture. And also, Dr. Zhang co-authored several influential books on communism, a textbook on Chinese civilization, a novel, his personal story, and also a show called A Grand View on Chinese History. A Grand View on Chinese History. His show called Xiao Tan Feng Yun. Yeah. With over 100 hours of lectures, on that series, video series. Dr. Zhang received his Ph.D. in electrical engineering from George Mason University, and with a great shift, from engineer to a YouTuber and also a research fellow. Well, thank you for coming. Yeah, welcome, Dr. Zhang.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Dr. Chang, Dr. for his wonderful and insightful speech. In recent months, there have been speculations that Xi may have lost power, especially when he skipped the recent BRICS summit. Other chatters spread on social media far and wide, ranging from his wife had divorced him to he himself was under house arrest, which all turned out to be rumors. I know that the CCP's inner workings can seem like a black box to many in the West, so let me break it down simply. To figure out if Xi's power is shaky, we need to look at the 3 key groups he controls. The first one is the Central Guard Bureau, or 中央警卫局. So let me share my screen so that you can see it. Share. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. So the first group we need to watch is the Central Guard Bureau, headed by Zhou Hongxu. This is equivalent to Secret Service in the US. And the second branch is the General Office of the CCP Central Committee, whose head is equivalent to the White House Chief of Staff, and the Secret Service Bureau of the Ministry of Public Security, headed by Wang Xiaohong. First, so the Central Guard Bureau, these guys are like the Secret Service in the US. They protect all top officials, including current and retired members of the Standing Committee of Politburo, and all members of the Central Military Committee. Yet they do more than that. They also monitor all these officials to make sure nobody crosses the line. If Xi controls this bureau, he can arrest any big shot who is defiant or poses threats to him. If he loses power, the head of this bureau will be out of the door faster than you can say cool. So the second group is the General Office of the CCP Central Committee, run by Xi's right-hand man, Cai Qi. This office is the nerve center of the CCP. Cai decides if retired leaders can even leave their houses or visit friends. No approval, no meetups. That means Xi's rivals can't easily plot against him. If Xi were losing power, Cai Qi will be replaced immediately. Finally, the Secret Service Bureau, led by Wang Xiaohong, keeps an eye on vice president tier officials. Through Wang Xiaohong, she can swoop in and deal with anyone at that level who gets too ambitious. Again, if she's out, Wang is out too. So one historic parallel. Back in 1976, just weeks after Mao Zedong's death, a coup shook the CCP. Mao's wife, Jiang Qing, got arrested, and the Cultural Revolution ended. The plotters, the heads of the General Office of the Central Committee, so which is like equivalent to Tai Qi today, and also the Central Guard Bureau, Wang Dongxing, so like the Zhou Hongxu here. So those same roles are critical today still for Xi to hold on power. Now let's switch gear to a fun story from history to show why small details matter. Around 1640, during a clash between Ming and Qing dynasty, there was a war, and then a general from Ming dynasty, Hong Chengchou, was arrested. Let's call him Charlie to make it simple. And because he is a high-level military official, and the Qing dynasty emperor really wants him to surrender, but Hong refused firmly. So the Qing dynasty, this emperor sent a missionary called Fan Wencheng. So this guy, let's call him William, to see Hong Chengchou. So they had a great talk, but this William didn't persuade him to surrender. This is just like a very happy, very pleasant chat. And then after some time, some dust suddenly fell from the ceiling onto Charlie's uniform. And then Charlie immediately dusted off. So this William saw these small details, and he stood up and just said goodbye. So William went back to report to the emperor. He said this general will definitely surrender. The emperor asked him why, how he could know. And William replied that if Charlie cherished his official uniform so much, how could he not cherish his life? The next day, the emperor went to the prison to see Charlie himself in person. And the emperor didn't speak, just looked at Charlie and asked, "Are you cold?" And then the emperor took off his own clothes and put on Charlie. And boom, Charlie surrendered. The lesson? Actions like brushing dust off a uniform can reveal someone's true priority. So now fly to Xi Jinping. Take his June trip to Kazakhstan as an example. when his plane landed, the president of Kazakhstan greeted him at the airport. She stepped off alone, strolled down the stairs to a blue carpet, looking every bit the top dog. Meanwhile, then you can see towards the end, so Cai Qi, let's roll back a little bit. Cai Qi got off the plane, and immediately he avoided the blue carpet and walked aside, taking a detour. Why? Because Cai Qi wants Xi to shine alone. So these minor details are very telling. It means like Cai Qi is really respecting Xi Jinping and wanted him to shine alone. So these minor details actually shows us like Xi Jinping is probably still firm in grabbing his power. So, and people may wonder like, what about those military purge we are hearing about? Some say that Xi Jinping's allies are being targeted, so he must be weakening. Here's the thing. Since 2012, Xi has been promoted nearly every general in Chinese military. So anyone who falls can be called Xi Jinping's guy. But that doesn't necessarily mean Xi Jinping is losing control. It's just the politics as usual in Beijing. And the military coup is very highly unlikely from my perspective. The Central Guard Bureau keeps the army in check. Moreover, the training, mobilization, command, and equipment of CCP armies are controlled by different departments and different people. These people must cooperate in the rebellion at the same time before the army can mobilize and get weapons. However, on the other side, the General Guard Bureau and also the Central Office of the General Committee, they are watching every high-level generals to make sure like they don't cross the line. So these people, it's very hard for them to meet up, not even to mention coup. So any troop mobilization also must be signed by the chairman of the Central Military Commission, CMC, and the two vice chairmen of the CMC. If one person is missing, the military order will not take effect. It means like if a coup happened, Xi Jinping himself has to sign off the order. So many rumors on Xi's losing power were based on people's resentment on his economic and foreign policies. People hope that Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao can step in to take China back to Deng Xiaoping's reform and opening up policy. But up until today, I don't see any major changes. So how do we know for sure if she is still the king of the hill? Keep an eye on 3 upcoming events. The first is the CCP's fourth plenary session. If she steps down as head of the Central Military Commission, that is a neon sign he is done. The second is the September 3 military parade, which is for the 80th anniversary of World War II's end. Official media says she will host and give a speech with guests like Putin and Lukashenko. Doesn't sound like he's a guy planning to retire. And the third event is the next year's Politburo meeting. If other 6 members of the Standing Committee of Politburo are still reporting to Xi Jinping and taking his feedback, he's still the boss. So these events are right around the corner. So let's watch and see. While on the other hand, I know people may be disappointed because she seems to be still grabbing the power firmly. While on the other side, I want to say, the more she is like a dictator, the more crisis he will create for the CCP in the future, because he has no successor. A dictator doesn't want to have a successor because the successor is getting too close to him and can replace him easily. And because he has no successor, so after she passed away, and a lot of people will fight for the power. So in that case, the CCP itself will be in chaos, and then I think the situation will be very complicated. Given the fragile situation of the CCP, I think like that power struggle can make the CCP collapse. So that is what I want to share for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zhang. Very, very interesting. I really like your historical anecdote to show. It's very quite insightful, very meaningful. Also, as you said, the fourth we heard that the fourth plenary session of the Chinese Communist Party conference is upcoming. So we'll see what's going to happen. And also, I know a couple other speakers today may hold a different opinion than that of Dr. Zhang about Xi Jinping's losing power or not. So we would love to see the arguments on both sides. Okay, both sides. All right, very good. Our next speaker, right, we're right on time. Very good. Is Dr. Chu-Cheng Ming or Ming Chu-Cheng or Ming Chu-Cheng 教授. And his topic is After Communism, Taiwan's Path as an Alternative. Right. Dr. Ming, he's a good friend of mine for years, and he's the professor emeritus at the National Taiwan University, political science professor, and he's also a senior fellow at the Consilium Institute. And actually, I remember back in 2004, that's 21 years ago, I had the honor to be on the same panel with Dr. Ming at the Constitution Center in Philadelphia. Yeah, that's 21 years ago. And also I remember back in 2017, when I was in Taiwan on Taiwan Fellowship, and Dr. Ming took me to lunch, and after lunch we went to several sweet treat shops, stores in Taipei, and we were going places, one place after another on bicycle. Okay? That was really good memories of mine. And Dr. Ming specializes in PRC politics, cross-strait relations, and foreign policies, elections, and international affairs. He was also a Fulbright visiting scholar at George Washington University. Now, let's welcome Dr. Chu-Cheng Ming, Ming Chu-Cheng 教授. Hello, Ming, Dr. Ming, we can't see you. Hello? I can see Dr. Ming, he's in the panel online, but we cannot see his picture, his camera. Dr. Ming, can you hear us, or see us? We may have a connection issue. Well, if looks like Dr. Ming is having a connection issue due to the fact that he is in Taiwan right now, in Taipei, Taiwan. How about we move to the next speaker instead? Dr. Heng, are you ready? Dr. Ming, we still can. Looks like he's saying something.
Yes, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. Why don't start with you? Yeah. Mr. Heng, Dr. Heng, and his topic is no one wants to take over Xi's place or Xi's mess. Okay? Dr. Heng is a well-known Chinese political commentator. Yeah. He authored and presented a Sound of Hope radio talk show program from 2005 to 2020, and a New Tang Dynasty Folks talk show program since 2008, both in English and in Chinese. Heng is a political author with several hundred articles under his name published in Epoch Times, both in English Epoch Times and Chinese Epoch Times. He was also a guest commentator for Voice of America, VOA, and Radio Free Asia, RFA. He is also the director of research at Human Rights Law Foundation, based in Washington, D.C. Okay, see Dr. Ming is back, but we'll have you next, all right, Dr. Ming? So let's welcome Dr. Heng now. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Today, I want to talk about why the CCP cannot go back to Deng Xiaoping's path. We all know that Chinese Communist Party, CCP, is in a deep crisis. And something replacing Xi Jinping could bring back Deng Xiaoping's economic growth and reform. But in reality, Xi Jinping is not the problem. He is just a symptom of the CCP's deeper flaws. The party cannot return to Deng Xiaoping's path because its own contradictions have caught up with it. Let's see some historic lessons. The CCP's reforms are like the Qing dynasty's attempt to modernize in the 19th century. The Qing dynasty focused on the economic upgrades, but resisted political changes, and it collapsed soon after that. Similarity, in 1978, Deng Xiaoping kicked off economic reforms, but kept the CCP's tight grip on power. His approach, market growth within the socialist system, worked for a while, but created tensions that are now breaking apart. Let's see the economic growth and the political stagnation. China's boom, especially after joining the WTO in 2001, gave the CCP legitimacy. So it's the legitimacy, economic legitimacy, replacing the political legitimacy. But endless high growth isn't possible. And stronger economy brings demands for political freedom. By the late 2000s, the CCP feared that private sector's power could endanger CCP's rule. Leaders like Bo Xilai and Xi Jinping pushed state control over the private businesses to protect the party's rule. This has crushed economic confidence, and the damage is hard to undo. Another thing is broken trust abroad. Xi Jinping has aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy. But this is less a shift from Deng Xiaoping's low-profile approach and more a question of timing. US-China tensions grew because the CCP didn't keep its WTO promises, like opening markets or protecting intellectual properties. Xi didn't start this. He just sped it up. Another is the fractured society. Deng Xiaoping's reform worked after the Cultural Revolution because people were hopeful. Today, decades of corruption and moral decline, seen in things like the persecution of Falun Gong, have left the society divided. The CCP rewards loyalty over ethics, making trust nearly impossible to rebuild. The issue is now everybody talk about replacing Xi Jinping, but there's no way back. Replacing Xi Jinping won't fix CCP's problems. Deng Xiaoping's model relies on conditions that no longer exist anymore. The CCP's survival now depends on controlling the very economic forces it once encouraged, but its legitimacy is fading in a society that's lost its way. There's no going back to Deng Xiaoping's era, only an uncertain future shaped by the CCP's own choices. That's why, we cannot expect any change on the CCP's rule, on the CCP's framework. Yeah, that's all I want to talk about. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. He. And it's interesting, you bring up the issue of the mess created by the CCP, but the system itself. Right? Is Dr. Ming back? Oh, wait a minute. I think he's offline now. Do you see? Johnson, the tech guy. I don't see Professor Ming here. Do you guys see that? Oh, he's back. Okay. Hello, Dr. Ming. Can you see us? Hear us? Okay, you're muted. Unmute yourself. Let me see if I can.
Okay. How about this?
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, let me briefly go over the intro again. Yeah. Dr.
Sure.
Yes, great friend of mine, and just I told everyone that I will still have fond memory of us together, having lunch and going to the sweet treat shops in Taipei on bicycle in 2017. Thank you for that. I'm going to treat you in the US. Yeah, Dr. Ming is a Professor Emeritus Political Science at National Taiwan University. And he got his Ph.D. in politics from Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame. He was a visiting Fulbright scholar at George Washington University. So I'm glad you're back there. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Frank. I don't remember that we went back that long ago. But anyway, I'm glad you brought it back. Anyway, the presentation I'm going to make is entitled After Communism, Taiwan's Path as an Alternative. It is a question. It is not an assertion. So that's something I want to remind you before I start. Secondly, I'm going to approach the question from a macro historical viewpoint rather than a bilateral one, Taiwan or mainland China or whatever. So we, human society, experience a long history of traditional society for several thousands of years. But anyway, the society transformed itself into a modern one because of the Industrial Revolution happened about 250 years ago. Industrial is so comprehensive. It covers areas like technology, ways of production, economy, society, politics, and culture. Since it's so comprehensive, so we call it modernization. For more than 200 years, 200 nations and people responded to this challenge of modernization. And in academics, we have pinpoint 4 models or 4 paths to reach a modernization or to respond to this challenge of modernization. The first one being capitalism. It's basically adopted by countries like Western European countries, Northern American countries, and so on. The second path is fascism, adopted by Germany, Italy, Japan, and some Latin American countries. The third road is communism, adopted by former Soviet Union, Eastern European countries, Communist China, North Korea, and Vietnam, and so on and so forth. The last one, we call it the new authoritarianism, adopted by countries like Singapore, South Korea, Hong Kong, Indonesia, and of course Taiwan. Of these 4 models or paths, there are successful and failed examples. Let me deal with the indexes or the index of or criteria of being a successful country. In terms of economy, we look at the proportion of industrial output. Basically, if it reaches or goes beyond 50% of the total GNP or GDP, then we call it is an industrialized society or industrialized economy. And the second part is whether it has a sound and a workable market mechanism. And thirdly, does it allow or respect private property? So that's the economic domain. Yeah, the criteria for the economic domain. For the social domain, we look at the the symptom of, or look at the result of a diversification, whether it is a diversified society. They respect different races, different languages, cultural backgrounds, and most importantly, religions. So we're looking at whether they have a what we call a civil society, and that's the social domain. And in terms of politics, we want to see whether they have a sound and workable parliamentary democracy. Sometimes we'll call it a competitive democracy with one or two chambers of the Congress. So as for the successful and failed examples for capitalism, the successful ones including countries like Western European countries, Northern American countries, and Northern European countries. And the failed ones include Spain and Portugal. For fascism, actually, most of the fascist states were quite successful in terms of their economic achievements. For instance, Nazi Germany, Japan during the warlord period, and fascist Italy, and they were all quite successful in terms of their economic development. But the problem with them, with fascism, is that, or with fascist states, is because they all eventually go into what we call jingoism or militarism, and that's the main reason for their failure. But after the defeat, they all went into a reform and become successful countries by now. And the third one is communism. If we compare the development history of all the communist regimes around the world, we notice that for the first 5 to 10 years, they enjoyed very stable political and economic development. But after 5 to 10 years, problems began to show. The biggest problem began to show in finance because of the heavy state subsidies for all kinds of industries and the businesses. So they usually will encounter a financial problem, a serious one. So when they encounter this kind of trouble, they usually will engage in some kind of reform. But when the reform reaches a certain phase, they're afraid that they'll lose control of the whole society, so they'll contract. So for almost all of the communist countries or communist regimes, we see a vicious cycle of reform and contraction. And then that eventually led to what happened in 1989 and through 1991. That's what we call the collapse of the Soviet bloc. Like countries like Poland, Hungary, Eastern Germany, Romania, and countries like that, they all collapsed. The communist regime collapsed. Some of them, after collapse, some of them are democratized, but some retrogressed. Countries like Russia, Belarus, and Hungary, they went back on the road of democratization. And communist China, yes, they had the quite successful reform for many years. But now they're getting into the period of contraction ever since Xi Jinping came to power for the past about 12, 13 years. And for North Korea, they're still having a very heavy hand on politics, on political control. There's no reform whatsoever, and it's still highly oppressive in terms of politics and in terms of society. And for Vietnam, they are now experiencing a very good reform economically and politically. So it seems things are looking better for Vietnam. And for the last category, the neo-authoritarian regimes, both Taiwan and South Korea are generally considered very successful examples for the authoritarian states. And Singapore has a very advanced economy, but it remains authoritarian in politics. Hong Kong used to enjoy what they call the one country, two system, but it failed after 2019. Now, in the eyes of Beijing, Hong Kong is a base of counter-revolutionary. So its fate is rather doomed. Now, let's turn to the question of the characteristics of Taiwan's path or Taiwan's model. As we mentioned before, in terms of economy, we see Taiwan has been quite successful in its effort to chase industrialization. It has a very sound and very workable market economy. It respects and protects private property, and that's quite a good picture in terms of economic development. In terms of social development, we see a long period of diversification going on for many years. So now we have new immigrants to Taiwan from Asian countries all over, and we respect different religions, and we have all kinds of social groups and this and that. So I would say Taiwan has a full-blown civil society. So that's what the economic and social domain. In terms of the political domain, there are several things that worth special attention in terms of Taiwan's experience. The first one is a gradualism. Taiwan is a society or is a political system which had no democracy, had no experience in democracy prior to the Second World War. And after 1949, ever since KMT came to Taiwan, it exercised an authoritarian rule for about 2 decades. And then it began to liberalize for about another 20 years. And then by 1987, we had a full-blown democracy by now. But still, it's there's still room for improvement as we see it. So gradualism is the first thing that I want to call attention to. The second characteristic of Taiwan's experience in political development is that we have established the authority of election or of our electoral system. It's been widely accepted, and people always say, oh, if you have any opinion different from ours or from mine, then go ahead and jump in the election. If you win, then I'll follow you. So that means the authority of the election in Taiwan has been fully established. And that's the second characteristic. The third one is, although we see much chaos happening in Taiwan's Congress or Taiwan's parliament, you see it all the time. There are all kinds of pushing, fighting, and dragging, and even punching at times. But I have to point out, in terms of the several decades of political development in Taiwan, violence is really rare, except for what you see in our Congress, and very little bloodshed was involved. Happened during the process. So that's a third characteristic. The fourth one is Taiwan has passed what we call the two-turnover test in terms of election or party control of the government. The first turnover happened in the year 2000 when Chen Shui-bian won the presidential election, who was a DPP candidate. And who won the presidency from the hands of the KMT, and that was the first turnover. The second turnover happened in 2008. President Ming won the election, and who was the KMT member, and who won the presidency over a DPP party. The third turnover happened in the year 2016. When DPP won the election. So that's a third turnover. So that means we have passed the two turnover test in terms of our effort to democratize our political system. But there are some insufficiency or shortcomings in our political process. The first one is I I'm really concerned about our respect for law. We have a relatively weak respect for laws and the legal system. So I think it's something that needs to be strengthened in the future. And the second thing that I'm concerned about is the infiltration by Communist China into our system and our society and our political system, our Congress, or even our military. So they create all kind of chaos, and they try to divide us up. So they're doing actually they're doing a pretty good job, as I see it. So now the fifth question is, this Taiwan's path, or Taiwan's model, is it suitable for mainland China? There are pros and cons in terms of this question. For the pros, yes, we're basically from the same origin. We share basically the same history up until 1949, and we have a very similar cultural and social background. We have a similar customs and moral standards up to at least 1949, and we share the same language. At least we can communicate without translation. So these are the pros. And for the cons, first is of course the size. But we can look at it from a different point of view. I'll explain it later. Second is the number of the population, and the total population of mainland China is about 61 times to that of the Taiwan's. But in terms of population density, Taiwan's a lot higher. I'm not sure whether you have noticed it or not. Taiwan is, in terms of population density, Taiwan is 4.5 times to that of the mainland China's. So supporting 23 million people in Taiwan is equivalent to supporting 6.1 billion people on mainland, about 90% of the total world population. So I guess that's a good defense for Taiwan. Anyway, I know that there's a big difference in terms of geographical differences on mainland China. From the east to the north, from east to the west, and from north to the south, there are big differences, and that's something Taiwan doesn't have. So Taiwan is basically homogeneous, and whereas mainland China is rather heterogeneous in terms of geographical differences. And then Taiwan has little minority problem, whereas mainland China may have more problem in that. But the last challenge, as I see it, is the one posed by or imposed by the so-called party culture imposed by the Chinese Communist Party. It sabotages China's tradition, and it poses a great challenge to China's future. So my conclusion is that Taiwan can be an alternative, but I don't say it as a statement or as an assertion. I tend to see it as a reference framework. But anyway, Taiwan is the first democracy, or first democratic society in the Chinese societies around the world. And it has gone through many tests, gone through God knows how many times of elections we have gone through. And we have, like I said, we have we have experience of three turnovers. So that means our democracy is kind of sound and robust. But to conclude, although Taiwan can serve as a good reference framework for China after communism, but still already. So how to cleanse it, how to clean it up is something that we have to face. It's one big challenge we have to face in the future. I think I run out of time. I think I better.
It's okay. Okay, thank you.
Now, and I'll probably wait for the second round. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ming. Yeah, thank you. You're okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that Dr. Ming talked about the
Frank, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Frank?
Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. We can hear you.
Oh, it's a time lag. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Thank you for the talk. It's very fascinating. I like the part you mentioned about the first 5 to 6 years of in the authoritarian regime, where the economy was booming for the 5 to 10 years, and then the problems start to emerge. I think that's exactly what happened in China between 1949 and 1958, when they started this collective movement, and the economy, state-controlled economy, central planning, start to fail. That's what we have. We all know that afterwards. But anyway, okay. Our final speaker of the first round is Dr. Xiaoxu or Shang Lin. And we already know him, and he's the executive director at the institute. And his topic is post-C era is reality, and U.S. government responses are needed. Right? Go ahead, Sean.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to speak after such a distinguished panel. And can you see my video?
You share something? You're sharing something? I can see.
I'm not sharing. No, I'm just saying that.
Yeah, we can see you. Yeah, we can see you all right.
Okay. Somehow I didn't see it like in the presentation box window.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Ming may have some connection issues, but it's okay. Yeah, we can.
Okay. So when I speak, the video didn't show in the presentation. In your view, is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds like on and off a little bit, but overall it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to present some different observation from Professor Tianliang Zhang. Okay. So of course, there are many intelligence information as well. Some observations indicating that Xi Jinping has lost crucial powers, and also a reorganization of the CCP power structure is already brewing at the highest level of the Chinese Communist Party regime. So I think these we can track back to last year. During the third plenary meeting of the 18th Central Committee of the CCP in July 2024, we saw news about Xi Jinping having a heart stroke circulated within the party. And of course, these news got leaked out. And then simultaneously, a major article, originally tailored to praise Xi Jinping as Xi Jinping is a reformer. This article was actually quickly removed from the official Xinhua news agency. So nearly 3 weeks ago, Xi Jinping totally disappeared in the public eyes. So that's why many people fully believe that he had a severe health problem. And during this period, the most crucial turning point in the CCP regime occurred. So Xi Jinping's name appeared significantly less frequently on the front page of party media. And then Zhang Youxia, the once marginalized vice chairman of the CCP's Central Military Commission, frequently presided over important military meetings while Xi Jinping was absent. And then subsequently, several high-ranking military generals promoted by Xi Jinping in recent years suddenly disappeared or were transferred. So this was severely weakening Xi Jinping's military power. So thereafter, CCP's media promotion of the Xi Jinping as the core of the party began to significantly cool down. The same year, at the National Day reception on October 1st, 15 CCP retired veterans, leadership veterans who had long been shared and alienated by Xi Jinping, actually all appeared and said at the same table with Xi Jinping. So this is actually demonstrating these leadership veterans actually have the renewed activity in the major CCP political events. Among them, former members of the Standing Committee, former Premier Wen Jiabao and also Li Ruihuan, sat on the Xi Jinping's left and the right side, respectively. This was a very rare arrangement in the CCP history. And then in November 2024, a more obvious signs emerged. So at the time, Miao Hua, a director of political work department who oversees military personnel appointments and is also who is Xi Jinping's most trusted confidant in the military, was actually placed under investigation. And then subsequently, He Weidong, the other vice chairman of the CCP Central Military Commission, and also Wang Chunling, commander of the People's Armed Police, and then Lin Xiangyang, the commander of the Eastern Theater Command, and also Wang Houbing, commander of the Rocket Force, and also Fang Youxiang, director of the General Office of the Central Military Commission, all disappeared. So multiple credible sources actually indicate they were being arrested, investigated, or removed from their post. So these key top generals are among the most core members of Xi's family army, right? So since May 2025, the trend of eliminating Xi Jinping's family army actually expanded from the military to the party to the government. So most representative example is actually the replacement of Li Ganjie, the minister of the organization of the Central Committee, who was also another close confidant for Xi Jinping, who controlled the government's personnel appointments, were actually replaced by Shi Taifen, who was a member of the Hu Jintao's faction. So basically, within 6 months, Xi Jinping lost both military and government personnel appointment power. So this is a very important, the key indicator that Xi Jinping has lost his power base. Of course, he doesn't lose his power completely, or otherwise you will see Xi Jinping being removed from the Secretary General position, right? But he already lost his power base. And then on June 30, 2025, the Politburo of the Communist Party of China actually reviewed and approved the important regulation. This is on central decision-making, deliberation, and coordination work. So these actually indicating there's a powerful body transcending the Politburo Standing Committee that has been established at the highest level of the CCP. So this body will become the new center of power in the CCP and serve as a transitional body before the formal announcement of Xi Jinping's resignation. So in this new center of power of CCP is expected to include at least 3 key persons. One is the Zhang Youxia, the vice chairman of the CMC, and then also Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan. So it is actually foreseeable that this new center of power will gradually modify or abandon the power model established by Xi Jinping. Right? So these power center right now, it is in transitional, and probably you call it a power struggle inside CCP because Xi Jinping, of course, does not want to be totally taken out. Right. So they are still in this transition period, and they try to identify who will be a good successor after Xi Jinping. This is a key issue. Who want to take on Xi Jinping's mess, right? So this is the key issue. But I think we want to, highlight that Xi Jinping probably already lost his power base. That's why China is in nature is already entered into a post-Xi Jinping era. And this is very important for the world because when Chinese Communist Party into these transitional structure, it already changed from Xi Jinping to like one person in control to relatively collective leadership. But this collective leadership is also a transition period, right? So we need to understand that the CCP may face a possibility of a sudden collapse. The whole world need to see there's this kind of opportunity may happen soon. So the CCP system usually pursue a high stable structure at all costs, right? So these kind of relentless pursuit of stability, it eliminate any room of self-correction, so leading to increasing brittleness. So when it reaches to this kind of final stage of decay, it will collapse briefly as well. So that's why I think the whole world need to understand the CCP may collapse suddenly, just like the collapse of Soviet Union, and it will be to the surprise of the whole world. And so because of time constraint, let me just finish here, and I want to highlight what will be appropriate U.S. response to this kind of transition period. Thank you, Frank. Thank to all the panelists.
Okay, thank you, Sean. That's interesting. I'm sure you're going to have some good argument with Tianliang later, right? Okay, we are a little bit running behind time, but let's go ahead and move to our second round. Second round, then I'm going to ask each panel member and a couple questions. Feel free to please answer my question. Also, feel free to raise issues or offer arguments or critique of others' comments. Right. First one, let me ask Gordon. Yeah, you mentioned that you saw some signs of failure in China or in the Chinese communist regime. Can you please a little bit more specific as to what are the signs? What do you know? What did you notice as the most important signs of the failure of the system? I have two questions for you. The second one is, in your book, of course, we all know that the upcoming collapse of communist China, there's a people who are actually unfairly criticizing you for not telling the exact date. But I noticed something, though. I think the Chinese Communist Party lost their legitimacy after two events. One is 1989, when they crackdown on Tiananmen Square student demonstration and opened fire in Tiananmen Square. And second is 1999, 10 years later, when they started the persecution of Falun Gong spiritual movement. So
I heard Frank's two questions, and then we lost the connection. Let me try and answer them. On the first one, Sean has gone through, I think, really, he's gone through, and I believe that he's really covered the most important things. The most important symptom, I believe, is Xi Jinping's loss of control of the military. So, for instance, the disappearance of General Hu Weidong
thriving,
absolutely
growing bigger and stronger. Okay. Hello?
Yeah. I think the most important signal is the disappearance of General Hu Weidong, a vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. He was Xi Jinping's number one hatchet guy in the military, and he disappeared. He's last seen in public on March 11th. I believe that General Zhou Yaosha is the one who was responsible for his removal. And if that's the case, that shows that Xi Jinping is not able to protect his own people. But, with this question of legitimacy, your second point, Frank, I believe that what we're seeing right now is a slow failure of the Chinese economy. And that goes to the issue of legitimacy, because as been pointed out, after Deng Xiaoping, the party moved from nationalism to economic prosperity as the primary basis of Communist Party legitimacy. And right now we are seeing an economy that's not growing at the 5.2% pace that was reported for the second quarter of this year. We're seeing an economy that's somewhere around zero. And this is evident because of the price data. China is in a deflationary spiral. and that is inconsistent with this notion of robust growth. The real problem here for Xi Jinping is that he has turned his back on consumption as the fundamental basis of the Chinese economy. That leaves him only with exports as a way to rescue a dire situation. And this is occurring at a time where President Trump is, with his tariffs, isolating China from the global trading system. We saw this, of course, most graphically with the announcement last Sunday of the US-EU trade deal, which is really important because China's biggest trading partner, at least as a bloc, is the EU. This year, China is on track for a $470 billion merchandise trade surplus with that organization. Its second biggest trading partner and its biggest single country trading partner is the United States. And with the 30% tariffs that are now in place, that means a lot of Chinese products are not coming into our country. That means Xi Jinping has a model right now that is incompatible with the way the world works, and that makes it very difficult. We're already seeing a Chinese economy in distress. I think it's going to become worse. That goes to the whole issue of Communist Party legitimacy. We see so many people now opting out of Chinese society. We're seeing money coming out of the country. And just one other quick point. I understand Communist Party runs the most successful total surveillance, total control society on earth, with maybe the possible exception of North Korea. But we have seen the Chinese people explode. That happened in October 2022, where despite all the Communist Party's ability to coerce people, people across China engaged in a series of very volatile protests over all sorts of things. Communist Party couldn't control it. The only way the party reasserted control was that it allowed the protests and the emotions to die out after 2.5, 3 months. So the model for Chinese society is explosion. And with the failure of the Chinese economy coming, I think that we're starting to see right now the makings of a collapse, and which is the reason why whatever happens, of course, we don't know, but the point is we need to start preparing for the worst, because the worst is probably the most probable scenario at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Gordon. Next question for Tianliang. Tianliang, in your speech, you mentioned the Central Guard. In the Central Guard, and there's a secret service, type of secret service going on with the Central Guard Command, right? The 中央警卫团. And also you have that there is a secret service part, components in the Ministry of Public Security. So I'm wondering if there are like both of them are put in charge of the role of the Secret Service of the United States. Aren't they fighting with each other, or they in conflict with each other, or how do they work together, in securing the security of the central leadership of the Communist Party? Do you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Okay,
and
so
also, we want to offer you a rebuttal to what Zhang and other guys said about the Xi Jinping's the state, okay? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I think first the question, there are like two bureaus in charge of the Secret Service, and the first one is the Central Guard Bureau, but this Central Guard Bureau is only taking care of the top level officials. We call it the 正国级, means like a president level. So in China, there's not only just one president, there are also like the chairman or general secretary of the party, and like also some of the people they in charge of the government, like the premier, they all considered to be the state level official. One common thing they have is that they all standing committee members of the Politburo. So as long as they are there, so they are we call the state level. So this part is taken care of by the Central Guard Bureau, and also the CMC, the Central Military Commission, is also guarded by the Central Guard Bureau. So it means like the Central Guard Bureau can arrest any state level official or the high level military people at Xi Jinping's instruction. So that's why we saw like He Weidong was taken away. So I have seen the story about like how the past two vice president of CMC were taken away. One is called Chu-Cheng, and the other is called Guo Buxiong. So when they were taken away, there was no resistance. The reason is, as I said, every military a member or like officials, they have no difference from like a government officials, because they don't have the real control of the military. So the military is divided into different departments, like the training, mobilization, like a command, and also the weapons. So all four departments, they must rebel together. Otherwise, if you want to rebel, you have no way, no access to weapon. And then they had no way to meet up together to discuss, because the Central Guard Bureau is watching them every single step. So back to your question, and there's another like the MPS. This MPS charged by Wang Xiaohong. Let me share that. So this Wang Xiaohong, he is taking care of the security of vice president level. It means like a vice premier, like a vice chairman at this level is taken care of by him. So that's how they divide the duties between these two factions. And these two people, they're fighting each other for the power. But generally speaking, the Central Guard Bureau has the final say. So, and I think I also want to mention one thing that I think we need to avoid. Recently, there are two major events. One event is like the trade war, between China and the US. I think like now Trump administration is trying to make a deal with China. This is sending a wrong signal to Xi Jinping. He knows that US is relying on China's rare earth minerals. And then he feels like he has a leverage, right? So, and this emboldened him. And another thing is the Taiwan recall. So I think recently, the Taiwan people, they are trying to recall the elected legislatives because they feel like they are just puppets of CCP. But that recall failed. Like 0 person was kicked out of the legislation body. So I think that's also sending a signal to Xi Jinping that his Taiwan policy is quite successful. These two things added up together, I think like this really kind of endorsement of Xi Jinping's grabbing of power. I think this is a very serious matter. I think like, again, so we can see like, I think like we don't have to draw a conclusion, but we can closely watch about the first plenary of the Central Committee meeting, which will happen this October. Let's see if Xi Jinping will step down from the Central Military Commission. So if he steps down, then he's done. Otherwise, probably he will be there for another 2 years or even more.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Next, I have a question for Dr. Ming. Can you see us, hear us, Dr. Ming? Ming Chu-Cheng? You're muted. Can you unmute yourself, Dr. Ming? Ming Jiao. Can you hear me? Do you hear me, Dr. Ming?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
All right. Yeah. I have a question, but we know that President Trump, is trying to build some rapport with Xi and have kept, saying that she's my friend, but sometimes he maybe not, but he is putting a huge pressure on tariff negotiations with China, also pressuring China giving up, their support to Russia during the Ukraine-Russian war. Recently, something happened when President Lai Ching-te was en route to South America, and normally the Taiwanese diplomat would have a stayover in either Los Angeles or Hawaii, and on their way to South American countries, right? With diplomatic ties to Taiwan. But this time, the stayover was permitted. Permission was given several times before, I remember. And this time, President Trump administration seemed to have denied Lai's stayover. Yeah. And does that send some, what kind of signal is that you think the U.S. is trying to send to Taiwan and also to China?
Yeah, we have heard reports about the denial. One of the reasons they said is because that Trump is thinking of making a deal, striking a deal with Xi Jinping, and he doesn't want to upset Xi Jinping at this moment, so that he's, I guess, showing a gesture of friendship, a gesture of goodwill, hoping that Xi Jinping would accept his offer. So I think that's one of the reasons. The second reason, I suppose, is that Trump himself is thinking of visiting mainland China sometime in the future. And it seems that Xi Jinping or his diplomats will want to use that as a leverage, use President Li's visit or Li's passing through the United States as a leverage, and pushing the United States not to give Lai the chance to stop over. Yeah, it happened before. President Li Denghui was received rather impolitely once in the United States, so he refused to step down of his airplane. Lai is much smarter. Lai is very smooth in his gestures, in his diplomatic gestures. So when the news came out, we noticed that our presidential palace issued a statement saying that we have no plan. The President Lai has no plan to visit foreign countries whatsoever. We have to take care of things like the flood and the trade deal with the United States and so on. Yeah, we think it's kind of an excuse, but anyway, it's an excuse. But I don't want to defend it. But anyway, I think it's kind of awkward. But also, it is that Beijing is exercising some kind of pressure upon the United States and forcing the United States to cancel it. I'm not sure how true it is, but anyway, it's a guess. So I don't know. Well, we'll see.
Okay, very good. Next question for Heng He, Dr. Heng He. You said that nobody wants to take over Xi's mess, right? And you seems to be implying that nobody wants Xi's job, But as we know that the people, or especially communist leaders, they all have the desire for power, even though they may know or they may realize that Xi Jinping is leaving a big mess, both politically, economically, also societal issues, the big mess, But still, I would say some people will want to have the urge to become the most powerful person in China, or even try to be the most powerful one in the world, with the communist rule if possible. So why would you say that? Why would you say that nobody wants to take over him or has the intention of overtaking his power?
I think the situation is really bad because there's no way out. The problem is there were chances. The military coup is not impossible in China. Actually, there were several military coups happened before. For example, the ouster of Zhang, Mao Zedong's wife, and his gangs. That was a military, almost a military coup. And the ouster of Hua Guofeng is normal, but it's kind of abnormal. So Deng Xiaoping want to be in charge, but he was in charge, but he didn't, even though he didn't want to be a top leader, but he has his own policy. He thought about how to change China, and get rid of Mao Zedong's continuing revolution. And he has a plan. That's why he needs to seize power to implement his plan. So anybody want to take over has his own plan. The problem is the CCP has a deep crisis originated from the crippled reform. The reform was crippled from the beginning, and all the problems accumulated in the past 40 years. It's not something you can solve immediately, or you have a plan to solve it. So if we want to take the power, you are facing the problem as a mountain. And if you don't have any solution, you will be out immediately. So this is not something everybody wants to take. And another issue is Xi Jinping established his group and put all his people in the standing committee of the Politburo. This never happened before. Even Mao Zedong, he has different factions in his Politburo. But Xi Jinping doesn't have any faction. He got rid of all the factions. So the inner circle people are all his people. They won't be able, because they are not at the same level as Xi Jinping, so they cannot do anything to change the course. It's not like when Mao Zedong died, and there were several people can discuss how to handle the situation, like Deng Xiaoping, Ye Jianying, and some Chen Yun, the old Mao Zedong, same generation but different faction. Now, in the core of the power, and nobody really knows what to do. Actually, even outside the core, people still don't know what to do, because the problem is not originated from Xi Jinping, it's before Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping is the solution of the party. It's not the problem. Like before Xi Jinping took over, there was a guy called Zhang Musen, and Zhang Musen was the close friend of Liu Yuan, who is Liu Shaoqi's elder son. And Zhang Musen mentioned that China was in such a condition that you pass the parcel with the time bomb. So this is like, pass the time bomb in the game of hot potato. The similar game in United States is called hot potato, but you pass the bomb. That means that came out, the solution is Bo Xilai's hit the red, sing the red and hit the black. The movement is go back, because they are losing the legitimacy. The problem happened as early as 15 years ago. So they need to find the new replacement of legitimacy. That's why Bo Xilai started to looking for the new legitimacy from Mao Zedong's revolution and their father's revolution. That's why. So the problem cannot be solved. Usually people want to take over is they have the solution. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, all right, thank you. Actually, I have a little thing I would like to share with you guys here too, with the panel and with the audience. My title is the CCP is in crisis, but what should the Trump government, Trump administration do? I believe President Trump got his, what I call the Brandenburg moment. Why am I saying that? Let's take another example here. Another country, communist Cuba, into perspective. The Cuban Revolution has reached a critical juncture. Right? Fidel Castro deceased, and his brother Raul Castro is now 94. Right? And the nation faces the looming leadership transition as well. the government remains entrenched in an outdated and inefficient economic model that continues to stifle growth and innovation. Now, what is the American government's policy on that? The Trump administration believes that the previous efforts at normalization empowered the regime's military and intelligence sectors while doing little to improve the lives of ordinary people in Cuba. That's why President Trump had a renewed policy outlined in his June 2025 National Security Presidential Memorandum, in which he reinstates the strict limit on U.S. tourism and financial transactions that benefit the Cuban government while promoting support for civil society, internet access, and private enterprise. Now back to China. Right? In the aftermath of 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre by the communist regime, the government actually strengthened its hold of power. And after the bloody crackdown, well, something unusual took place in Soviet Union and Eastern European countries. Interestingly, at that time, the USSR faced the same problem, almost the same problem as what China faces today: internal stagnation, economic decline, bureaucratic inefficiency, and growing dissent. Exactly what we're seeing today. Just what's happening today in China. Good thing for the Russians and Eastern European countries, there were external pressures from the United States under President Reagan's leadership. We all remember that Reagan's Brandenburg Gate speech was a rhetorical pinnacle, encapsulating Western ideological opposition to Soviet communism and galvanizing pressure for reform. One thing we must realize is that the CCP is adaptive. Their authoritarianism is adaptive, quite adaptive, very flexible. And they're leveraging technology for surveillance and economic control. And that contrasts with the Soviet Union's brutal system. And CCP's global economic integration, after China was accessed into WTO, also makes it less vulnerable to isolation than the USSR ever was. Right? Today, the CCP regime is more, we'll say, more violent, more blatant, and more vicious. And they're fighting and undermining the US in many fronts. Fentanyl issues, right? Illegal immigrations. We talk about the illegal immigration from South America. There are illegal immigrations from China too, right? Long-arm jurisdiction, having police precinct in Flushing, New York. International property theft, transnational repression, geopolitical expansion into ports and choke points all over the world, from Panama to Greenland, potential invasion of Taiwan, or the blockade of Taiwan, and of course the trade imbalance and non-tariff barriers against U.S. goods. Compared with Reagan, I believe that Trump faces a stronger adversary, but actually Trump has more leverages and more lethal weapons. For example, in high-tech trade or in high-tech export or restrictions on China, and also trade war or tariff war. What I believe this administration, Trump administration, really needs is to seize the opportunity. Knowing that the CCP is on the verge of collapsing, and Trump needs to just claim as what Ronald Reagan did, right? Say something like, Mr. Xi, please tear down this Chinese communist bamboo wall. That's what I would suggest to Trump, right? All right, and also, Chang, you get your final moment here.
Okay. Well, glad to do it after you, because you mentioned about the potential for President Trump to talk to Xi Jinping to call for the tear down the Great Wall, maybe the Great Firewall. But to me, actually, I think the calling may not need to be targeted to Xi Jinping now. And to me, actually, I think the military coup already happened. And Zhang Yuxia's taking control of the CMC, Central Military Commission, is already indicating it's just a soft version of the coup, and with the support of two former Communist Party elites, veterans, Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan. The only puzzle is who will be chosen to be the successor after Xi Jinping. But I agree, it's important to observe the outcome of the coming the fourth plenary meeting coming up in October. But even if Xi Jinping is still holding to the title, I believe he's still just a display on the front. His true power is already lost. The military coup already happened, and the three guys that Tianliang just mentioned, Zhou Hongxu, Cai Qi, and Wang Xiaohong, none of them have military influence. None of them have military experience. None of them have enough control in the military. There's no way any of the Xi Jinping's people can overturn the military coup initiated by Zhang Yuxia. That's why I believe the power transition is happening. Just that Xi Jinping try all his best to try to grab to the power, maybe on the surface, maybe can hold on to the title, but any decisions, key decisions, won't be made by him. So actually, it's critical actually for Trump administration to understand the key and vulnerable situation and the transitional period in China. Who President Trump administration can get into touch with them? Who do they contact can trigger more political reform inside the Chinese government? Who can bring a better hope in China? That's what the key question they should ask. Of course, President Trump received the invitation from Xi Jinping to visit China, but the timing will be very important. And definitely, I don't think they need to go for the so-called celebration of the World War II victory, and because CCP always try to claim that they win the World War II. Instead, it's actually Republic China won the war. So CCP need this kind of fake legitimacy. So if Trump goes to China to visit during these kind of celebration, actually it will be a critical support for CCP's legitimacy, not just actually supporting Xi Jinping. I don't think Xi Jinping has any hope, even if Trump go to China to shake hands with Xi Jinping. So the issue is how United States respond to this critical situation. I think many of the policymakers probably will think, United States not in a position to do a regime change. Of course, this regime change concept is irritate many people, right? But I don't think United States need to think from this perspective. I actually want to echo Gordon's point. The Chinese people are awakening. So Gordon mentioned about the white paper movement at the end of the year 2022. But at the same time, actually inside China, there are big Chinese people awakening movement, not just because of different Chinese groups being persecuted inside China, or their house were teared down, or all kinds of suppressions, digital dictatorship. Not just because of these, but also because many Chinese people start to see the true nature of the Communist Party, and there are big movements called withdrawing from the Communist Party. So withdrawing from the three organizations from the Communist Party, the party, the Youth League, and the Young Pioneer Group, right? So hundreds of millions of Chinese people actually quit these three organizations using their pen name, pseudonym, and this movement already lasts for more than 20 years inside China. So there is a big awakening inside China, and this awakening is so critical. Actually bring a more stable factors in the transition period of China, and I think it actually reduce the chance of China totally fall into a chaotic situation, into a war period. And so Chinese people abandoning the CCP ideology, abandoning this CCP ideology is very critical. This is actually related to, as Frank, you talked about Hindenburg moment. During the collapse of the former Soviet Union, the awakening of former Soviet people is also very important. And John Pope II, how important his message being delivered into Soviet Union, waking up many people, back one Soviet Union back to the former traditional system, traditional culture. This is really important awakening. And so I think China has some foundation already. Inside China, many people are waking up. So this is also bring up another important issue, why United States need to fully support all kinds of government efforts to stop CCP's transnational repression. Because to CCP, this is actually not just about the United States supporting a persecuted group, a vulnerable group. Actually, because CCP feel very much the Chinese people's awakening got global resonance. This is a connection. Under the globalization, of course, CCP entered into the, WTO, gaining many access to many opportunity to access the capitals, all kinds of growth potential, right? But at the same time, the globalization also create opportunity for different groups inside China to have a global network. So, underground churches people, of course, they connect more with the Christians outside. And the group, the Falun Gong group being persecuted in China for the last 26 years, they also have better connection with Falun Gong group all over the world, right? So CCP is now waging a huge war against Falun Gong because they're afraid these kind of global connection would totally shaken up their governance inside China, their dictatorship inside China. That's why CCP is mobilizing all their hidden spies, agents, United Front operation agents in the United States to activate them, try to destroy Falun Gong through legal war, through information war, through all kinds of unrestricted warfare strategies and tactics. So United States need to crank up these kind of like the legal system in the United States to stop CCP's transnational repression. This is actually strategically important. And so I think we need to understand the CCP's, this whole ship is already have too many holes. It's in the process of sinking. And so no matter how many captains you change, you can change to CCP to another person, maybe change another person afterwards. No matter how many captains you change, it's still gonna sink. The sinking is inevitable. And it's also like an uncontrolled train. So many people call Xi Jinping is the chief accelerator, right? So his role is accelerator. He's already broken the brakes. There's no way the train can stop. So the key here, I think, for the United States and the whole world is to think about how to help the Chinese people who are still abroad on this sinking ship, on this uncontrollable train. So I think the position here, for not just the United States, actually for the global community, need to think about how to help Chinese people, and then they will help their own country as well. So United States will help themselves when taking the high moral ground, not just on the economy, trade, tariff issue. Of course, those has tremendous leverage, tremendous advantage, and will also make CCP, lose its legitimacy because it cannot bring prosperity for Chinese people. This is important, but at the same time, claiming the high moral ground is so critical in this point. That's why I think it's time to adjust the fundamental principle on this foreign policy. The whole world need to think about how to help Chinese people. And more Chinese people waking up, and the society's transition into a more democratic system will be more likely and more stable and more peaceful, and the whole world will be in a more safer environment. That's my ending. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chang. Yeah, you're right. The boat is sinking, right? Actually, we have a question from the audience. Let me read that. It's from Stan. He says, a question for all the speakers. Oh, by the way, I have unmuted everyone on the panel, including Casey. You can unmute yourself. Please, feel free to join the discussion. Let me read this question from Stan. Everyone of you can answer. The question is a question to all speakers. Considering the fragile state of Putin's Russia, marked by population collapse, sanctions, and losses in the war against Ukraine, do you believe the CCP's regime is likely to fall sooner or later than Putin's? And will she face any repercussions for his support of Putin and Russia's war against Ukraine? Whoever, anyone can feel free to jump on board. Want to give a shout first?
Okay, so I think this is a very good question. I think right now Russia and the CCP, they're like holding each other's hands tightly, and they've definitely stand together to fight the United States. Recently, I saw news that a lot of Chinese military was deployed to Fujian province, which is very close to Taiwan. And they said like they are also waiting for the attack order from Xi Jinping. So I think this is a very subtle situation. Probably Xi Jinping will not launch an attack, but he's showing his gesture that he will stand with Putin. So they refuse to not buying oil from Putin. Well, on the other side, I think America has already stipulated the regulation that if anyone who purchases from Russia, they will impose 100, even 500% of tariff on whichever country, like probably China. But in that case, we are back into this dilemma. So if United States cut tie with China, and then the supply chain will be disrupted, and then probably the rare earth minerals will also be stopped from delivering to America. And then America is in trouble again. So the reality is 40% of American weapon using the chips from China. And also our medicines all were from China, like 90% from China. So that is a very serious situation. I think Xi Jinping is betting that Trump will chicken out. So, but I think this situation is very, very subtle. Every compromise the United States made will embolden Xi Jinping, to take further steps against Taiwan and to disrupt the world order. So I think Trump needs to show a tough hand, no matter what. Don't back out. Just fight with CCP with his determination to show his leadership in this free world.
Okay, very good. Anybody else?
I want to briefly answer, what Zhang said just now. I think sometimes Xi Jinping wants to be low-key, so you may not see him so frequent on the newspaper. The reason is like when he sees things are in a mess, then he's tended to back out and let other people to shoulder this problem. So we can see that when COVID-19 broke out in 2020, and when Xi Jinping realized that the situation was really messy, he just appointed the then Premier Li Keqiang to be the head of the whole task force. And he just, try to be low-key. But after just 1 month or 2 months, when he saw the situation was under control, and he jumped out to claim that he was the guiding person and he instructed people how to handle the situation. So I think when China's situation is bad, you will see like Xi Jinping be more and more low-key and appear less frequently on the newspaper. Does not necessarily mean that he is losing power. So that's my observation.
One question though, Tianliang, for you and maybe others too. There was a museum somewhere in Hebei province. It's called, I think it's called Hanzhong, some Central China Revolutionary Museum. It was named after Xi Jinping's father's name. Has his father's name on the plaque of the museum. But that his father's name was removed. If he was not losing power, how could that kind of things happen in China?
Actually, there are two museums. One museum is named after Xi Jinping's father, which is still there, and the other one is because there's already one museum, called the Xi-Zhongxun's memorial museum, and so they don't need to have a second one with the same name. So that's why they have a different name. But then the second museum is still, promoting Xi Jinping's father as like the key figure of the leadership of the revolutionary campaign in that area. So I don't feel like that is, so telling. That is so revealing.
Okay, gotcha.
Gotcha.
Anyone else?
So
I want to also respond to the question from Stan, actually, regarding about Xi Jinping suffering any repercussions for his support of Putin and Russia. I think he's already suffering it with such a strong support of without cap, right? He all the way support for Russia's war against Ukraine, and at least in the foreign relations field, Xi Jinping has messed up the relationship with Europe, and and the sanction on Russia also have economic impact on China as well. And Xi Jinping's definitely has many criticism inside the CCP system that he chose this path to support Russia's invasion. So I think it's already suffering. Probably it's also one of the reasons that China get more and more isolated in the world, and Xi Jinping got criticized, and then he's losing his control. But I also want to give opportunity for Casey Fleming to respond. I mean, Casey is CEO for the Black Ops Partners, and he has also many experience on the national securities and China's unrestricted warfares. Casey, can you say a few words? We only have like 2-3 minutes left. Yeah.
You're muted, Casey. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great interchange with everybody today. To get more depth on your opinions on what's going on inside of China, CCP, and Taiwan. It's very helpful to me because I focus more on the free world and the infiltration and subversion of the free world, and how we need to act and be aware of what's going on. That's the reason for the books, because nobody's written the book towards the American people to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is the infiltration. This is the goal of the CCP and how all this is acting. It's very serious to the free world of what's going on, especially in Canada, UK, Australia, with the censorship. And the key thing about the American people is that if they become aligned and motivated, they are a powerful force. But they've been kept in the dark in this, even by our government. So it's key that we all understand what's going on, and this interchange really helped to give me a little bit more detail what's going on. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Frank, we lost your connection. So Frank probably get disconnected. Maybe all the panelists can say last words to end our webinar. Maybe start from Gordon.
This has been a fascinating discussion, so thank you very much for including me. I think that going back to Stan's question, which is absolutely fascinating, which regime fails first, Russia or China's? I think it's going to be largely dependent on the attitude of the United States. And I think that essentially you see President Trump frustrated with Vladimir Putin and still trying to accommodate Xi Jinping. So my sense would be, because we've got so much power in this, whether we believe we have or not, I think that Russia probably falls first. But in any event, we do know that these two regimes see the world in the same terms. They identify their interests in the same way, and they support each other. So they probably are going to either stand together or they're going to fall together. And the real challenge for the United States is to make sure that they both fall, because we cannot coexist with either of these regimes. It's unfortunate, but that's the way they feel. They feel that they are in an existential struggle with the United States, which means we are in one, whether we Americans like it or not. And so thank you very much.
Well, with that, I think we are right on time. And I want to thanks to everyone, all the speakers, and also our participants online for making this seminar a successful one. And I want to thank again from Consilium Institute. And again, thanks, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you, guys, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.